Are you ready to meditate with Cory? Make sure that you're comfortable in your bed. You're wearing your comfortable pajamas so that you can relax your body. Maybe after a while you can close your eyes if it feels right for you. Corriannda woke up in a strange mood. For some reason, she didn't know why, she was being called to be in nature. She had a feeling when she checked in with her intuition that something was calling her outside. She'd been reading a book lately on teleportation. Teleportation is a kind of mind magic where you raise your body off the ground and you go to a different destination. But it's not like your imagination where you imagine that you're going to a different place in your mind. Teleportation is when you're actually capable of transporting your physical body to some other place. How wonderful would that be, she thought to herself. She'd been practicing and practicing and practicing. She'd seat herself in a meditation position with her legs crisscross applesauce. Close her eyes, take lots of deep breaths, and try and make it happen. In the book that she'd been reading, it talked about certain monks in Tibet and Nepal and different places in the world that could do this. They could teleport their bodies off the ground. They could melt snow with their minds and sit there for hours and hours and hours on the cold, snowy mountains and melt the snow around them. This was some serious magic, she thought. If only I could do it. And then when she was being called to nature, she thought maybe she needed to be outside to practice her teleportation. So she went along with it. She trusted her intuition. Not too far away, there's a lovely, lovely park. The park has roses and different flowers in it. It has a lovely path with trees on either side. It's a really beautiful place, and normally it's quite quiet. So that's where she went. She was walking on the path, admiring the pink roses to her left and to her right. They smelled so nice. She was thinking about all the different potions she could make with the petals. There's nothing better than having a bath with rose petals in. It feels so fancy. Anyway, as she was walking down the path, she noticed like a sparkly light there in front of her. At first, she thought it was the sun. Maybe the sun was reflecting off different things and it was creating those beams of light that you can see sometimes. But this looked like a magical light. It looked very different. She didn't want anything more than to go sit under the sparkly lights there on the path and meditate. All the trees around her had singing birds in them, and it felt really special, as if the birds were singing to her. She sat down on the path, crossed her legs, straightened her spine, and started to think about her body raising up off the ground. Corriannda the witch was there for quite a long time. Nothing seemed to be happening. Until she felt herself starting to lift up. Rise up like a balloon floating to the sky. She didn't feel like she was rising up very far, but she could definitely not feel the path underneath her bum anymore. The first thing she did, of course, was open her eyes, absolutely startled, quite horrified, and very excited all at the same time. And when she opened her eyes, she saw hundreds of birds with their cute little beaks holding onto her clothes and lifting her up. Well, she started laughing. I mean, it was absolutely amazing that the birds were helping her. And I mean, also, this is magical in itself. Who goes for a walk in the park and gets lifted up by hundreds of birds? No one. But at the same time, she really thought she'd teleported. She thought she'd raised off the ground with her mind, and she was an absolute brilliant witch. Her feelings were quite conflicted. In one breath, she was so excited about all these birds, but in the other, she'd realized that she'd cheated because she didn't lift herself off the ground with her mind. The birds did it. She started talking to the birds. Thank you so much for lifting me off the ground, but, you know, I was trying to do that myself. Telepathically, in her mind, she felt like the birds were saying, "We were just helping. We weren't trying to intrude. Thought you needed to get off the ground." Corriannda said, "You guys can read my mind?" The birds said, "Well, we can read your mind. We thought you were talking to us." Corriannda said, "Can you read anybody else's mind?" The birds said, "Not particularly." Corriannda slapped her thigh, as if in celebration. "Whoa! That's too cool. I am a brilliant witch. I can talk to birds. Who cares about teleportation? I am like Snow White." The birds said, "Who's Snow White?" Corriannda said, "It's a long story, but she can talk to all the animals in the forest. They all love her so much." The bird said, "Well, then you're not like Snow White because you can only talk to us, and you're not surrounded by other animals." Corriannda said, "Well, that's not very nice. Maybe give me a minute, and some cats or dogs or something will come and be with me." "Okay," said the bird. "We'll give you a minute." The birds, the hundreds of birds, lowered her down and placed her gently on the ground. Corriannda got to work. She closed her eyes, focused her mind, took long, deep breaths, felt herself getting into a meditation state. "Mind, be my life," she said internally. What she meant was, let me be a part of everything. Mind be everywhere. Mind be my life. And she imagined herself with all of the animals. Cats, dogs, pigeons, squirrels, ladybugs, grasshoppers, frogs, beetles. Oh no, maybe not beetles, she thought. Ants, spiders. Oh, definitely not spiders. Mind be my life, but make sure I can't talk to spiders, she said. The birds were all chuckling around her as if they could hear everything she was thinking, and they thought it was very funny. One of the birds said, "I don't see any other animals yet." Corriannda, without saying a word, said, "Shh, be quiet, I'm trying to focus." The birds all chuckled again, and then they went quiet. Corriannda could hear a dog barking in the background. "I'll get that dog to come and be with me," she said. She sent out radars, signals, frequencies. "Doggy, come and be with me. Come here right now and show these birds I can talk to other animals." The doggy's bark in the distance just kind of disappeared. Didn't get closer or louder. In fact, it went the other way, as if it was walking away to a different place. Corriannda was disappointed. The birds said, "See?" Corriannda said, "Shh." She tried for about 20 minutes. Not one other animal came, only the birds. Corriannda opened her eyes, dropped her shoulders in defeat, and gave a big sigh. "Looks like I'm just a bird whisperer, not actually Snow White." One of the birds said, "What's wrong with being a bird whisperer? That sounds pretty cool." Corriannda listened and said, Yeah, you're right. I mean, I can't talk to other animals. I can't teleport. Not yet, but I will learn. But I can definitely talk to birds. They read my mind. I am definitely a bird whisperer. Corriannda said, "Do you mind doing that thing again so I feel like I'm actually teleporting?" The birds agreed. She closed her eyes, and all of the birds gathered around her, using their beaks, picked up a different part of her clothing, and then lifted her up about 10-20 inches off the ground. The sensation of floating off the ground felt very cool. It only inspired her even more. She was going to read more books. She was going to practice and practice and practice. She was going to be like those monks in Tibet. She was going to maybe practice melting an ice cube first, since she didn't have a snowy mountain close by. She would sit on a bunch of ice cubes and see if she could melt them. Corriannda had high hopes for her witchy-pooey abilities. She came from a long line of witches. In her mind, every generation could only get better. Right? Why would it be any other way? After a while, the birds put Corriannda back on the ground. She said that she had to go home and thank them all. She would definitely be back to this magical spot. Unfortunately, 2 weeks later, when Corriannda went to the same park, to the same spot, those magical lights near the pink rose bushes were not there anymore. She still sat there in her meditation position and tried to talk to the birds. But nothing anywhere close happened like it did before. The birds didn't come and pick her up. The birds didn't talk to her in her mind. The birds just chirped happily away in the background, which was lovely in itself, but that's when Corriannda realized that obviously there was something about this spot and those magical lights that gave her a special power that day 2 weeks ago. And she decided that she would go there often, just in case the lights came back. Because you never know.